everyone, welcome to the OklaRoots YouTube channel. In today's tutorial, we're gonna go over the cutest little thing ever. Oh my gosh, you guys. Today, we're going over the mini Magda wristlet, and this comes to us from Rosa Patterns. You guys, look at this little nugget. Is this not the sweetest thing you've ever seen? It's just a little tiny circle thing. It is so stinking cute. So let me walk you through it real quick. I've opted for a spooky kind of Halloween-y vibe, and I'm using this adorable hand tag right here. It says, hauntingly handcrafted. Ooh, I love it so much. And I've got like a little pumpkin zipper pull on it. I am opting for the wristlet version. You could very easily put another one of these little tabs over here and make it the world's cutest crossbody. I know. And as the pattern implies, this is a mini version of a pattern that Rosa does have. I think it's the Magda bag. I have not made it. It's on my list, but now I definitely got to make it. Look at me. Hello. Can you smile? It can smile too. This is the fun. I know, I'm a child. But you can see on the inside, there's no pockets, nothing fancy, nothing crazy. It is so fast, so easy. Yes, these are some tight curves. You are going to be practicing your curve sewing here, but I highly recommend you do it. I mean, it's so tiny. It's so tiny. So you can see this is one that I've practiced on for this tutorial today. And I want to show you guys something because this wasn't actually the first one I made. The first one I made, I had an idea. I had a vision. And I just wanted to remind you guys that no matter how much you sew and how many things you make, there's always room for improvement. And I definitely learned that. I had a humbling experience. So as you can see, I'm using this beautiful like marshmallow quilted vinyl. I mean, it is just so stinking cute. And I had this idea. I was like, what if we did all vinyl on one side except for one panel? What if we did clear vinyl on that other panel? And while from a distance it doesn't look so bad, it looks pretty good. If you get a little bit closer, you can see I have some things to learn still when it comes to clear vinyl and binding. It's a little rough around the edges. However, my kids actually adore it, so they will be getting this one. So this is a pattern where you can really practice your bag making skills, your curvy skills, without having to, give up a lot of material. This is also one where you can get incredibly creative. You guys, I am on Facebook and I saw someone making these and they are putting little jack-o'-lantern faces on here, the little triangles and they're like little tiny wristlet pumpkins. I'm going to have to copy that idea. I'm so sorry. I'm going to have to copy it because it is an adorable idea. So make sure if you're on Facebook, you check out, you go look for Rosa Patterns. I believe there is a Facebook group. See how people are modifying this because this is just like it's just like a donut. It's just the most adorable little thing ever. So thank you as always to Rosa Patterns for allowing me to use your patterns in my tutorials. I love them. You guys know we just went over the Catalina bag for like the second time a few weeks ago. I know. I'm obsessed. So I have all the patterns already and we will be going through them. Don't you worry. I'm just going to try to spread them out a little bit. If you're new to the OklaRoots YouTube channel, please consider clicking subscribe down below. If at any point you like this video, please give it a like. Any questions, comments, shout outs, anything at all, leave them down in the comment section. We will have timestamps as always. It's a very quick make. You're going to become addicted to them. You make one, you make two, you just keep going. You can't stop. Every time you look at material now, you're like, how would that look in one of these little mini bags? I'm gonna have to try. All right, guys, let's get started. So for the bag today, I'm gonna use this super fun cork. You can see it has this gold and like red flecks in it. It gave me very like fall Halloween-y vibes. So I'll be using this cork today. You're gonna need 1/4 yard of that. For the lining, I'm using this water-resistant canvas. It's nice and lightweight. I don't have to interface it with anything. It's really easy to work with. So again, you're gonna need about 1/4 yard of that. If any of this is gonna be made using a quilt cotton or a cotton woven or a cotton lycra, anything that can stretch really easily or fray, you are going to want to add some woven interfacing. I like to use Sew Fuse for that. You could also use Pellon Shape Flex. And then the only stabilizer I'll be using today is Decoville Heavy. You're going to need about 1/8 of a yard of this, maybe a little bit more. You need it for the 2 circle cuts and then also 1 cut for the gusset. The pattern does suggest you use Decoville Light on the gusset. I just don't have any on hand right now, so I'm going to use it in Decoville Heavy. It's going to provide nice structure. However, if you do use Decoville Heavy on the gusset, it is going to be a little bit harder to sew together because it does not fold. It's going to stay pretty stiff. So here's everything else I'll be using today. Not a whole lot, really. You're gonna need 7 inches or longer for your zipper tape. I'm using a number 5 zipper here. I have a 1/2 inch D-ring. I'm actually using a 3/4 of an inch swivel hook purely because I don't have a 1/2 inch swivel hook in this finish. So I'm switching up the strap measurements just a little bit, but that's all. So I'm still using a 1/2 inch D-ring, but I'm using a 3/4 inch swivel. I have my bag tag as always. For the top thread, again, I'll be using the Tex 35 weight. For the bobbin thread, I'll be using this Gutermann thread from Joann's. My needle of choice is a Microtex 8012 needle. Double-sided tape is always very helpful. I have double cap rivets here. These are rivets, let's see, they're medium rivets, 9mm by 8mm. They're colored nickel. These come from Emmeline bags. Then I have my zipper pull, my number 5 zipper pull to go with my zipper tape. I like to have a few different options for marking tools. So I have a friction heat erasing marker. This can be used in the seams and on backs of material, but I would not use this anywhere that's going to be seen in the end. You can use an iron to erase it. However, it can sometimes come back. So I just use that for tracing and for seams. And then I have an air erasing marker. The air erasing marker can be used everywhere and it will erase over a little bit of time. And then a vinyl marking tool. If you're using any sort of vinyl today, this is great because you can just wipe it off when you're done with it. A stiletto is going to be very, very handy at keeping everything together when we're sewing these curves under the machine. It's a very tight area. Stiletto is like a third hand that can get close to the needle. You gotta have one. A lighter just to clean up any little loose threads. And then of course a stiletto and seam ripper combo as always, and a 1 inch by 6 inch ruler. Okay, so let's go over all the pattern pieces. First, your main pattern piece. This is the front and the back of your bag. I'm gonna be using 2 cuts of cork for this and then 2 cuts of my water-resistant canvas. No interfacing applied to anything yet. No stabilizer applied yet. But the stabilizer that will go with this are 2 cuts of Decovil Heavy. I have those right here. These are smaller cuts, as you can see. It's smaller than the big one. And then I have my bottom gusset cut. So this is a lining bottom gusset and then also a exterior bottom gusset, as well as a smaller cut here. I am using Decovil Heavy. The pattern does suggest you use Decovil Light though. This is a smaller cut than the exterior materials. And then zipper gussets. I have 2 cuts of my exterior and 2 cuts of my lining. This just goes on the zipper on the very top of the bag and there's no stabilizer or anything there. Next, I have my little D-ring connector. If you want to make this a crossbody, just cut out 2 of these and make sure you have 2 of your D-rings as well. But I'm just going to be doing a wristlet today, so I just have 1 cut. And then I have my wristlet cut here. Like I said, my swivel hook is 3/4 of an inch, so I did have to change the measurements of this. The length is the same as the pattern suggests, but the width of it is 3 inches. So when I double fold that, it's going to be 3/4 of an inch. And then here's the thing. I was just trying to find a fun way to zhuzh up this little bag. There are so many incredibly talented people out there using this. I have seen, my favorite so far is I've seen people applique on a face to make this look like a little pumpkin. Oh my gosh. I wanted to do that so bad today, but that is a really, really fun take on this. So you can have a lot of fun with this. You can put an embroidery design on here. You could applique something on here. You could use your heat transfer vinyl. I mean, sky's the limit. These things are addicting. However, I actually have a whole bunch of these iron-on patches of different letters. So I think I'm going to actually try to use that today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lightly heat this on and center it on one of my exterior panels. And then I'm going to sew it down. And then we're going to try to put it all together and see if that works. So if it works, that'll be great because I have a bunch of these patches and we can add them to the shop if you guys are interested in purchasing some of those letters because they are very pretty. So since we're talking about it, let's start with this letter. What I'm going to do first is find the top and bottom centers of my little circle front panel here and also the side centers. So all I have to do is fold this in half, just like this. Go all the way to one edge, pinch, and you can mark with a pen or a teeny tiny cut with your scissors. Just make sure you hold that there while you go around down to the bottom and pinch and clip. There we go. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take those 2 clipped marks and I'm going to pull them up together, have them meet one another, and then just pinch again. And now I'm finding the midpoint marks between the top and bottom marks. Okay, and you don't have to heat this up. This does have a heat backing on it, so you can just pretty much iron this on. It does take quite a bit of heat to get it to iron on perfectly. I want to heat it up just a little bit to have it stay in one place, but not so much that when I'm sewing through it, the glue is all melty, you know? So I just want to get it to stick a little bit. I could just use double-sided tape here, honestly, or I could use like a basting spray. But let's just try this first. So number one thing here is just to make sure it's centered. Make sure these corners are not too close to any of the edges. Find the midpoint. Here we go. Find one of these marks on the top so that we'll sew this straight. There we go. All right, I think that looks okay. I'm gonna flip it over and I wanna heat it on from the back. So I'm just gonna take my iron. I just wanna warm it up enough so it will stick, but I want the glue to dry very quickly too. I don't wanna sew through hot melted glue. I need the glue to dry. All right, so it's not super stuck on. Let me do it just a tiny bit more, but it is sticking a bit, so that's good. And that's the thing with these patches too. You don't really want to press the patch from the front. So you can see these patches, they have like a fun glittery outline, and then they have this like fuzzy chenille, you know, texture here. And the more you press it from the front, the flatter that fuzzy chenille is gonna get. So if you want to keep it looking nice and fluffy and pretty, press from the back. So this actually looks good. It's not perfectly pressed on, but it is enough. Oh yeah, that's perfect. That I can sew it on now. So now what I'm gonna do is actually just go to the sewing machine and I'm just gonna sew right next to my letters, just the outline. So like an 1/8 of an inch, 1/16 of an inch in over the glitter outline. So I'm not gonna sew on the white part. I'm only gonna sew on the glitter here. I'm gonna use a zipper foot for this because I find it helps me get really close to everything. Well, that was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. I've been avoiding using these for some reason, and that was simple. So now let's attach our Decoville Heavy. So I'm gonna grab my remaining exterior piece and my stabilizer and also some scrap quilt cotton because I don't like to touch the back of the Decoville Heavy with my iron. You can, it's just personal preference. So I'm gonna flip this over. I'm going to center my Decoville Heavy, and the biggest thing I wanna make sure of is that it completely covers my letter, because the Decoville Heavy is really going to dictate where we're sewing. You cannot sew on top of the Decoville Heavy and then fold it. It's gonna look crazy. So the Decoville Heavy, this cut right here is pretty much the end size. So as long as it's completely covering my letter, which is nice because I can see the stitches on the back, then I'm good. Here we go. So now I'm just gonna cover this up with some scrap material, and I'm going to heat the Decoville Heavy into place. And this is also going to help heat up the rest of your patch. So if you're using one of these patches, it's very firm in place now. It's stitched on and heated on with a very strong glue. So should not have to worry about it coming undone. All right, there's one all done. I'm just kind of folding it around. I want to see what it's gonna look like. All right, so there's one. Now I'm gonna grab the other exterior piece in the Decoville Heavy, and before I attach it, I am going to mark the midpoints on the top and the bottom and the sides, just like I did on that front piece. It's easier to do this before you attach the Decoville Heavy. Once that Decoville Heavy's on there, it doesn't fold so easily. All right, once I have those midpoints marked, then I'll attach my Decoville Heavy and just center it. If you want to grab a ruler and mark in about 1/2 of an inch, I think. Yeah, about 1/2 of an inch on all the edges. You can mark that in so that it's perfectly centered. I just give it a little eyeball and then cover it up and press it into place. All right, so the exterior front and back are done. We can put that to the side. Now I'm gonna grab my gusset. I'm gonna take my gusset exterior and my gusset stabilizer. I'm using Decoville Heavy. The pattern does suggest Decoville Light. And I'm just going to center this. Again, if you want to do 1/2 of an inch on all edges, go ahead and do that. You can measure it in. I'm just going to center it and then cover the back and then press it. If you're using a quilt cotton or a cotton woven material, you should press this from the front. That's going to give you the best adhesion. It's going to adhere the best if you press this material from the front. The heat has the best access to the glue that way. But I don't like to press from the front of cork. All right, once that's attached, we're just going to take our gusset and put it to the side. So the next piece of setup I want to do is attaching my little bag tag here. Since I've got this on one side, I'm not going to attach it to this piece. I'm just going to attach it to the back. And to do this, you can grab a ruler and center it. If you've been here for a minute, you know that every time I sew on a bag tag, I always sew it on a little crooked, no matter how hard I try to get it straight. It's just my style. So the extra time to measure doesn't really affect me that much. So what I'm gonna do is just kind of take a peek at this. I am paying attention to my midpoint mark, so that's gonna be the top. And then I'm not that picky about where this goes. How does that look? That looks great. So now I'm gonna top stitch around this at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, once you have your front and your back panels all ready to go, grab the exterior pieces and the lining pieces, and we're going to lay the exterior and lining wrong sides together. Sometimes it's kind of hard to figure out which is the wrong side of water resistant canvas, but it's the side that feels a little bit not as soft. All right, so I'm gonna lay these wrong sides together. I forgot to mention my other favorite tool, which is these little clips. So I'm just gonna use clips to hold this together. It's nice and small, you should be good. Just going around the whole pattern, clipping them wrong sides together. We do the same thing with the other lining and exterior pieces. Okay, once you have these clipped together, we're gonna just baste around the edge of each of these little circles at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, these are all ready to go. Your front and back panels are done. Set those to the side. Now we're gonna work on the zipper, and my zipper tape and zipper pull are both from So Sweetness. There are like every type of option for zipper pulls on the So Sweetness website, so go check that out. I am going to cut my zipper tape longer than it needs to be, so I like to make it nice and long. The pattern is going to have you sew this together one way. I'm not gonna do that today. I'm gonna do it just the way I'm more comfortable sewing these. It's probably not as quick as what the pattern suggests, but it's how I'm comfortable. So I'm gonna go ahead and attach my zipper pull to my zipper tape. There we go. And I'm just gonna attach the zipper just like I normally do. So let's start with an exterior piece and our zipper. And it doesn't really matter which way the zipper pull goes right now. But I'm going to take my exterior cut and I'm going to lay it right sides down on the right side of the zipper tape. And I'm gonna move it over towards the right a little bit. My zipper is a lot longer than it needs to be. I probably didn't need to cut it that long. But I'm gonna clip these together, right sides together. And what's nice about having a longer zipper tape is that I'm just going to pull the zipper out of the way. The pattern does suggest you actually remove the zipper pull and then separate the two pieces of zipper tape, and then you pretty much just sew on each side of the zipper tape to its panels and then put it all together using the zipper pull. I know that can be really tricky for some folks, so I am going to show you how to do it, by keeping the zipper intact. But if you're going to do it this way, I do suggest your zipper is longer than it needs to be. Okay, so I'm just going to baste along this clipped edge at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Once that exterior panel is basted on, I'm going to flip this over so I'm looking at the back of my zipper tape. Then I'm going to grab a lining panel and I'm going to take my lining panel and lay it right side down. So right side down on the back of the zipper tape, and I'm going to make sure I'm lining it up with the edges of my exterior. So don't line it up over here. You see the problem? Line it up with your exterior zipper panel. And the zipper tape is going off the edge on both sides if you made it longer like I did. So I always start with the corners first, clip those together, and then clip in the middle. So now we're going to sew along this clipped edge at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. And I forgot to turn the camera on for that part. I'm sorry, I'll show you on the other side. I'll repeat this again, don't worry. So now what I'm going to do is press my panels wrong sides together. So I'm going to start with this lining side over here. If you want to get out an iron and press that, that's perfectly fine. I'm just going to finger press one side first. And then what I do is I take my exterior and I'm going to fold it back and match it up with the raw edge of my lining. So I start with the corners, just like that. I'm going to clip those together. I just find that clipping these raw edges really helps to get everything straight. All right, once those raw edges are clipped, then I can kind of pull on my zipper tape and pull on my material and just finger press this down. There we go. That looks great. So now I'm going to top stitch right along this folded edge next to the zipper at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. There we go. I have one side attached. Now I'm going to repeat that with the other side. So I'm going to take my other exterior piece and I have my zipper here, right side up. Taking my exterior piece, I'm going to lay it right side down and I'm matching it up with the sides. So the short edges here, I'm matching that up with the zipper panel I already have attached. And then I'll just grab some clips to clip the exterior piece to the zipper tape. Now I'm going to baste along this clipped edge at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Once that's basted on, flip over your zipper tape. So we're looking at the back of the zipper. Take your remaining lining piece here and lay it right side down. So right side to the back side of the zipper tape. Again, make sure you're lining it up with the short edges for the panels you've already attached. And then just use clips to hold it together. And now let's sew along this clipped edge on the top here at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Once that's sewn on, go ahead and once again flip your lining so that it's wrong sides together with the exterior. So I just push the lining first, and then I'm gonna flip back the exterior and add some clips lining up the raw edges of the exterior and the lining. Okay, now I'm gonna top stitch right along this folded edge by the zipper tape at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, and then I'm also gonna go ahead and baste around all the raw edges at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, going over the zipper teeth, holding together these, long raw edges here. And before I do that, I need to make sure my zipper pull is in the center. So don't top stitch this over here and your zipper pull is not on the zipper. You know what I mean? How stinking cute is that? Okay, so now just making sure your zipper is included here. Zipper's on there. Now I'm going to trim down the extra zipper tape so that I just have one cute little rectangle. You're adorable. So once you're done with the zipper gusset, go ahead and put that to the side. And now we're going to work on our little D-ring connector. This is easy to do. Just draw a line on the back side of this going down the midpoint. And then if you want to use double-sided tape, you can. Let's see if we can get away without using the double-sided tape. Actually, I think we will need to use double-sided tape here, so I'm just going to lay that right along the middle of our connector and trim that down. And then I'm going to remove the paper, and then I'll fold this wrong sides together. And it's so tiny. I'm going to use clips to hold the long sides down. There we go. It's going to end up being 1/2 of an inch wide, so it is a very tiny little guy. So if you're using material that you can iron, ironing is going to be your friend here. So even if you wanted to use like water-resistant canvas, that would be good. All right, so now that we have that in place, we're going to take this to the sewing machine and just top stitch along both long edges at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. All right, now we're going to take the connector and wrap it around the bottom straight edge and fold the connector wrong sides together. There we go. And we'll just clip. Perfect. So now grab your zipper panel. So we're going to place this on the end of the zipper, so when the zipper is closed, this will be where it meets up. So the zipper closes towards the left. This is going to be placed on the left. The D-ring goes in towards the center. And then the raw edge here is going to overhang by about 1/2 of an inch. You can measure it if you'd like. You can eyeball it. It doesn't have to be that precise, but about 1/2 of an inch overhang. There we go. And if you were doing a little crossbody, you just put one on the other side as well, and there you go. It's easy peasy. But I'm going to go baste this on at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. So now let's build the gusset. So we have our zipper panel part of the gusset. Let's also grab our lining and exterior bottom gusset pieces. Now grab your lining bottom gusset cut and lay it right side up. And then grab your zipper panel and lay it so that it's lining side down against the lining over here. And you will notice your zipper panel is a little bit more narrow than your bottom gusset. That's supposed to be that way. You should have about an 1/8 of an inch overhang on the top and the bottom. That's okay. Just line them up and clip them together. There we go. And then take your bottom exterior gusset and lay that right side down. So the zipper panel is sandwiched in between the lining and the exterior gussets. And if you'd like to first baste on this lining at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, you can do that. This is a pretty small bit here, so you should be able to just add it to your clips. Okay, now we're going to sew along the short edge at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. So now that this side is sewn on, we're going to do the same thing with the other side, but your zipper panel is shorter than your gusset, so you're going to just fold it over just like that, move the extra material out of the way, line up the lining and the zipper gussets, kind of center your top zipper gusset over the short edge of your lining, and then make sure your D-ring is pointed down. Don't let that get under the needle. And then take your exterior gusset and lay that right side together and clip in place. And now let's sew along this short edge at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Just be careful with your D-ring. Make sure it's not too close and you don't accidentally hit the metal with your needle. Okay, the pattern suggests trimming down the gusset exterior piece, so not the little overhang here of our D-ring, not the lining, just the gusset exterior piece. Just trim that down to about 1/8 of an inch seam allowance to help reduce bulk. There we go. Do this for both sides. And if you'd like, you can go over your zipper tape one more time on the edges just to make sure that's nice and secure. Now we're going to flip this out so it's exterior right side out. There we go. Now what we want to do is top stitch along these edges. So you want to fold your lining back so it's nice and secure against the exterior. There we go. Add a couple clips to hold it in place. So I have one side. I'm going to do this with the other side as well. Already, how cute is this? I know. All of this, as it comes together, it's just like, oh, it's so cute. All right, now I'm going to top stitch along both of these edges. So I'm top stitching on the gusset side. So down here at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, just on both sides here. So I forgot to turn the camera on for the first row of top stitching that I did. So I decided to do a second row of top stitching just so you can see how I fold this at the machine to try to top stitch it. If you want to add rivets over here, you definitely can do that now. It's nice to have a rivet go through the little connectors, especially if you're doing a crossbody. I'm going to leave it without rivets. But now what I want to do is I want to base down the lining and the exterior gusset pieces here, because you can see it's a little wobbly. So all you have to do to get this straight is just flatten it out as you go around. So right now it's difficult, but if you just kind of flatten it and then add a clip, you should be able to get it all lined up pretty well. And if the lining's a little bubbly, then the lining's a little bubbly. It's not a big deal. There we go. So, but as you flatten it, you'll see the lining straightens out and it becomes the same size as the exterior. So do this for both sides. Okay, so now I'm going to baste along both of these clipped edges at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. I already basted my zipper gusset, so I don't have to worry about that, just the bottom gusset. All right, so now we have our front, we have our back, and we have our middle, and all we have to do is put it together. This is so exciting. And of course, I forgot to show you guys the binding pieces in the beginning of this tutorial. Okay, so let's work on just sewing this together, and then we'll deal with the binding, okay? So the first thing I have to do is find my 4 midpoint marks on my gusset. So I'm gonna fold my gusset together, lining up the seams between the top and the bottom. I'm gonna fold those together and then pinch towards the top and clip right at the top there. Flip this over. I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. And now, pinching it together, I'm going to fold at the bottom and clip the midpoint on the bottom as well on both sides. And then what I'm gonna do is take those midpoint marks on the top and the bottom and pull this together, line those up so I can find the midpoint marks on the side as well. And this is gonna be just below the connector between the zipper panel and the bottom gusset. So do this for both sides. So now I'm going to take my front panel and lay it right side up. Take my gusset. When the zipper closes, it's going towards the left. Flip it out. Take that top midpoint mark on my zipper panel and line that up with the top midpoint mark on my front panel. I know it's a tight fit, so I'm going to clip up there, and then I'm going to clip the bottom. There we go. And then I'm going to clip my side marks. Remember, I have 4 midpoint marks on both pieces here. Okay, so now I'm going to flip this over and look at the back of the front panel, and it already is tucked in like a bowl. But that's what I want. I want to tuck it in like a little bowl and just add clips around all the edge. Okay, so we got this little cutie in place here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to clip into the gusset. Only the gusset, not the front main panel. So I'm just going to go around, and every inch or so, I'm just going to clip a tiny little slit. It's about 1/8 of an inch into the gusset. And that's going to help the gusset spread out at the machine so I don't have to fight it so much. You could also staple this if you'd like. I've tried stapling a couple times, and it resulted in injuries, so I stay away from stapling now. Okay, so I have some clips made into my gusset. I also keep my scissors at the machine just in case I need to clip some more. And now what we're going to do is sew this in place. You can baste it in place at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, or you can baste it in place at about 1/4 inch seam allowance. I like to go with about 1/4 inch. I'm going to go all the way around. Use your stiletto, because as you get there, I'm going to sew with the gusset lining side up. So that means I have to push this all down out of the way. And as soon as you do that, the gusset and the exterior front want to separate. So you need to get your stiletto to hold it all together. Once you get started, it's a lot easier. It's just getting started. It's a little tricky to get it all together. Okay, one part's done. The second one's harder. So let's just get it out of the way. Let's do it. So take the back panel and lay it right side up. Take your unit that already has the gusset, which is adorable, lay it right side down, and we're gonna find the top midpoint mark on the gusset by the zipper, and the top midpoint mark on your back panel, and match those up, and clip together, and then find the bottom midpoint marks and clip those together. And then find the side midpoint marks, line those up. Okay, once we have that clipped in place, we're going to once again just make little tiny clips with our scissors into the gusset, just about 1/8 of an inch in, and I just do it about every inch or so. It really helps sew this together if you make these little clips. I find that I don't have to fight the gusset much at all, since it can spread out just enough. All right, once that's all clipped together, we're gonna sew along this edge. I'm gonna baste it again at 1/4 inch seam allowance. You really gotta shove this top piece out of the way, which I know you don't wanna do, but you gotta shove it out of the way while you do this, because this is pretty firm, especially if you use the Decovil Heavy on the gusset. So just go slow, be careful, and smush this out of the way. Okay, you did it. The hardest part is done. I know you want to turn it out and look at it, but just wait. We got to do the binding still. And I forgot to show you the binding because I forgot to cut the binding. So I'm going to cut 2 strips of water-resistant canvas at 20 inches by 1 inch. And that's what I'll use for my binding. Okay, so now that I have my strip cut, I like to start at the top of the little zipper here. And I'm going to take my waterproof canvas and I'm going to wrap it around the seam. And the waterproof canvas is right side up, wrong side down. And I'm just gonna wrap it around and clip it in place. And you can see when you do this, especially once it's turned right side out, you really can't see this at all. It's not noticeable. So once I have one clipped on, I'm gonna sew this on. And I'm gonna sew this on at about a 3/8 inch seam allowance. So again, kind of pushing out everything else out of the way. I'm just gonna stitch this on. It shouldn't be as difficult as it was before because everything's already sewn together and it doesn't matter how beautiful this looks. This doesn't have to look perfect. Just 3/8 of an inch, go nice and slow all the way around. All right, one is done. Let's do the same thing with the other side. And I'm not saying it's easy, but it shouldn't be as hard as it was to attach the gusset to the front panel. So again, just clip it all around. All right, let's go sew this on at about 3/8 inch seam allowance. All right, the most stressful part of the whole project, turning it right side out. So just go slowly, be gentle. So as I push it out, I'm just going around the circle. This little patch looks so cute. So the nice thing about binding is that it adds to the structure. It creates like a bone inside the bag. So just push it out. Try to smooth out all the little wavy bits. Oh my gosh, how cute is this? And I love this cork. This cork has a perfect feel. I was thinking this would be a really good teacher gift. You could get like patches for the letters for your teachers, or you could get numbers for their grade. That would be so cute, right? Oh, it's so cute. Okay, so now we just have to make the wristlet strap. So for the wristlet strap, you're gonna wanna mark a midpoint line going down the long edge. For me, that's gonna be 1.5 inches up from the longer bits here because I'm doing a 3/4 inch swivel hook. And then what you're gonna wanna do is fold the material wrong sides together. You can use tape here if you'd like, or you can just use some clips, or you can iron this, whatever is easiest. So we're gonna do this for both sides. And then once you have them both clipped like that, we're gonna fold the whole thing in half, like a hot dog bun, and just clip it all together. That way we don't have any of the long raw edges anymore. So once you have this clipped, grab your swivel hook and thread it on. There we go. And try to get it kind of towards the middle. So you just have to move the clips as you go. You just want it out of the way a bit while we close off these short edges. And then take off the clips close to the short edge. Take your strap and fold it up so that the material is right sides together, and open up these short edges. You might have to remove quite a few clips because we want to open up these short edges all the way. And it's okay if you have to remove a bunch of clips. We can easily rebuild this, but we want to make sure our swivel hook is on here before we sew this. And then clip along the short edge so that the material is right sides together. And now let's sew along this edge at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Now, once you have this sewn, clip the corners down at an angle just to reduce bulk. There we go. And now you're gonna refold this. So finger press this open and refold this all down so that, again, it's the long edges to the middle. Kind of just pull on it and then fold it like a hot dog bun. And I find just tugging on it helps. And smush it down with your fingers. It's pretty bulky here where the seam is, but you can smush it down. Okay, so now we have this in place. I'm gonna rotate it out because the right side is the side where my swivel is. And now we're gonna top stitch along both folded edges at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance all the way around. All right, once that's all sewn, what you want to do is take your swivel hook and tuck it close to the seam, because you see the seam here, it's very stiff. So we don't want that to be part of the wristlet piece over here. We're going to have that be its own thing where we don't need it to flex very much. So we just fold it and tuck our swivel hook right where that is. Add a couple clips. Now, if you prefer, you can go to the sewing machine and just sew like a little rectangle or just a couple lines back and forth to hold this in place. I'm going to use a rivet because we love rivets. So I have my hole punch. I'm going to grab one of these rivets. I'm going to flip it to the back here. I'm not punching through, so I'm not going to punch through the seam here. Where the seam is, I'm not punching through that. I'm going to punch just below it and centered. And then I'll grab one of my rivets and pop that through there and snap on the other side. There we go. And then I have my rivet press to remove these clips, and I'll just press the rivet. And there we go. The strap is all done. Let's attach it to our little adorable pouch. How stinking cute is this? This would be fun too for college students, right? Like their letter for their university. This would be a cute college student gift. Oh my gosh. Let's open it up. It's so stinking cute. Oh, I hope you guys love it. Oh my gosh, you guys, if you've got somebody in college, you need to get a patch or something and make them one of these, because for football games, oh, how fun would this be? Well, I don't know, that could be a little dangerous for football games. But how cute is this? Like, I just love it so much. So get creative with this. I am so glad we tried these patches. I love these patches, and they are actually the absolute perfect size for this pattern, which was just very, very good luck for me. This bag came together so fun. Again, hello. I gotta stop doing that. I know. My kids aren't here to embarrass them, so I'll just embarrass you guys a little bit instead. Or maybe I'm just embarrassing myself, but I don't feel like I am. I hope you guys love making these. These are so much fun. If you do make them and you post them on social media and you want to tag me, please do. I'm at OklaRoots. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I love seeing this. I would love to see more versions. I know some of you guys are going to say, could you put some little ears on it? And I'm still trying to figure that out. But yes, you could definitely put couple little ears here. Take it to the most magical place on earth. I know. Thank you so much for sewing with me today. I hope you're having a great day. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your week. Get out there and make something. Bye, guys.